Talking About Marketing is a podcast for business owners and leaders, produced by Steve Davis and David Olney of Talked About Marketing. More than 8,000 conversations have taught them something. You can't read the label from inside the bottle. Everyone needs external perspective. Through their 4 Ps: person, principles, problems, and perspicacity. Yes, you heard that correctly. They explore marketing with curiosity, generosity, and the occasional gentle eye roll. They hope this becomes a trusted companion on your journey in business.
David, if I came up behind you in a dark alley,
Yeah.
and I leaned forward and I whispered in your ear, recession, what's your first reaction?
Probably to laugh hysterically when I realise you've just walked up behind me in a dark alley and said recession.
If you were a normal person, David, what would be your reaction?
Probably to run screaming and then wonder why you said recession.
And that's exactly the point I was angling for, because a lot of today's episode is going to be based on a book by Mike Michalowicz called The Recession Response, and we're going to do our best to make this applicable and practical. Good challenge?
I think it's a great challenge, and it's also, thankfully, what Mike is about in writing very clear and engaging books of things that people can immediately put to use.
Our 4 Ps. Number 1, person. These are insights for the whole person, not just the business operator. Oscar Wilde put it this way: the aim of life is self-development, to realize one's nature perfectly. That's what each of us is here for.
Mike Michalowicz is just one of those rare business writers who's actually lived through a lot of disasters that he writes about. Apparently, I'm not sure if you knew this, David, but he has built companies, he's sold them, he's lost most of his money, he's started again. This guy has, battle scars from the world of business, but he's found his niche in writing business book after business book, things like Profit First. What's the other one? What Next or something?
What to do next.
Yes, something like that.
Something called The Pumpkin Plan, which I haven't discovered yet.
Clockwork is another one. But he also, in 2020, so as the world was adjusting to this thing called COVID and wondering what the heck is going on, and financial markets groaning under the weight, he wrote a very short book. Now, I haven't held it physically, but let me just explain it like this. Most business books that we listen to, audiobooks, are somewhere between 7 and 9 hours long. This is just over 2 hours of listening. So as you can imagine, a short, punchy book. It was called The Recession Response, and that's going to lead the first 2 segments of our discussion, because with what's happened in Iran, the constriction of oil supplies, these have knock-on effects that threaten and knock up against our economic health. David, what makes you feel that this book, The Recession Response, in 2026, still has relevance as it might have had in 2020?
I think one of the most important things from my perspective is consumer confidence crashed at the start of COVID. So in the US context, we have consumer sentiment data since 1952, and the numbers in 2020 were bad, but the current numbers on consumer confidence are the lowest they've been since measurements started in 1952.
Ooh.
They are even lower than during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Which was a very heady time.
Yeah, a serious low point in people believing there was a tomorrow. So I think that's really significant. And I think the fact that Mike put this book together so quickly, but even though the book is short, throughout the book, he goes, here's a worksheet, go to the website, download it, use it. Here's a worksheet. So unlike a lot of short books where you go, how much is really in this? If he'd put all the worksheets in and he'd gone through a lot of the steps in depth, it would be a 12-hour book. But he has deliberately gone, we're all stressed and we need to do something in a hurry and we only need to do the practical, and we can understand the deep philosophical issues later, but let's get busy moving forward now.
And this is what I think is one of the strokes of genius that he brings to the table, because in his book he lays out the 5 stages of a recession response, and the very first one, which is shock, is a reaction that often leads to uncertainty, and therefore we freeze. It's as humans, whether we're running businesses or not, there's a tendency to freeze. I think, just the way you were talking before, David, he knew that if he made a long tome, no one would read it. This was a book written for its moment, which has come around again.
Yeah, it's the irony. In a lot of ways, it seems like this book could have benefited from a bit more editing. It feels kind of rushed, but also because of that, it feels very emotionally authentic. Like he's worried about what happens next too, but he knows, having gone through 3 recessions as a business owner and coming out of all of them with better ideas, better understanding, and always enough resources to give the next thing a go, that he knows as long as you move forward in a productive way, you will be okay. Of that he is absolutely certain. And unlike so many people that are trying to convince us of a good idea, he's simply telling us what keeps working, recession after recession after recession. And that's very powerful.
I want to show you the trajectory that I've experienced, at least when it comes to a recession like this and how it affects businesses. And it follows something similar to the 5 stages of grieving. Now, as opposed to an individual grieving, we now have societal grieving. Now, I've been through 2 other significant recessions, so my experience is based upon that. The 2001 recession, when I had my my technology business, was triggered by the 9/11 attacks, and then there was an economic decline. It happened again in 2008. The Great Recession was triggered by the housing market decline.
And we're going to tease that out as we go through these first 2 segments. Let's just run through those 5 stages right now. So the first stage is shock. And remember, this is the person segment, so we're going to be grounding this on the personal experience, and then we'll turn it to the business afterwards. But before we do that, I mean, what happens in this shock stage is many businesses freeze or they delay decisions. So the key risk here is doing nothing, and it happens in our personal life too. I think I confessed a couple of episodes ago, which was just in the immediate wake of the Iran war taking place, that I was hit for a bit. I was a deer in the eyes of the headlights for a little while I drew breath. The next one is retreat. Stage 2 is retreat. Start cutting costs, reducing spending. The danger, he says, is cutting essential growth activities like marketing, for example. Then we move to stage 3, where we adapt. We reassess customer needs. We adjust our offerings. Direct customer engagement, he says, in this stage becomes critical. I'll talk more on that in a moment. And stage 4, re-emerge. The stabilization occurs. Businesses refine operations. They begin controlled growth. And then stage 5 is thrive. Businesses can expand again, capture market share. Those who adapted well outperform their competitors. What I wanted to come back and just mention briefly was direct customer engagement becomes critical. Yes. Just having... I developed a little system a few years ago called the FED system, called Fish Every Day. And it's really simple, David. You just choose one client, customer you've got, and some businesses this will be more applicable than others. You give them a call. You say hello. Not to sell anything, just to check in, see how things are going. I am surprised by how often that does end up leading to some work, but not always, and that's not the point. The point is to remind everyone that you're here, to actually express some genuine care and connection, and it's easy to be too busy to do. And I say that to myself. I don't follow the Fed system as much as I should, but it is the sort of thing that I think is a little secret weapon for helping to make a business as recession-proof as possible.
It's really interesting you talking about that, because as I was listening to the book, it reminded me of the 1987 crash as a teenager. And my dad was in the big business world when I was a teenager. And I remember the week after the crash had happened, a friend of Dad's coming over on a Saturday night and simply saying at the dinner table, "I'm planning to buy this transport company. Do you want in?"
Wow.
When things were seriously bad. And I always remember being struck by his confidence that he'd done the math. He knew what he could afford to risk. He knew how big the win could be. But I realised when listening to Mike's book, the thing Dad's friend missed, and it was a really important thing, is he was past shock. The people he was talking to weren't. So by coming in so brashly and making it all about him, he actually alienated a heap of people who could have helped him take over that business, run it better and make a bag of money. And it never happened, even though he was sure he could do it. And even though I'm pretty sure his numbers were right, but by reading the situation, the psychology of the situation wrong, he couldn't get the people he needed on board. And that lesson has always stuck in my head, that if you don't interact with people where they are psychologically, you can't possibly get them to move forward or move forward with you at a faster pace.
And in our next episode, in a fortnight from now, at the time these are being published, we're going to reflect more on the emotional dynamics of us as humans and in business. But just to round off the person segment and where this has some application just for us, I think the beauty of this, the 5 stages of recession response, comes from the fact that there are 5 stages. Mm-hmm. And there's a cyclical nature here. If we can, and you correct me if you disagree on this, but I think if we can all have the faith that these things do come in cycles over time, so that we have the confidence to keep down and applying ourselves where we feel we can do the things that need to be done, the sun will rise again. I think we have to act like that, because to not act like that means to give up, and as Mike says, then your competitors will just eat you for dinner. This is your way to be that obstinate little, weed or flower in the garden that just doesn't seem to die, doesn't always flower or blossom, but it hangs in. Do you think that is the gift of knowing that there is such a thing as the 5 stages?
I think about it because of my philosophical training very much from a question of agency. Shock reduces agency. Desperation reduces agency. But if you accept you have to go through shock and desperation to get to adaptation, then just get through shock and desperation as quickly as you can without doing anything really stupid. So take control of going through the things you have to go through to get to the better bit of the cycle as quickly as you can. And get your agency back as fast as you can and do something productive with it.
Interestingly, I think we might close on this example, but I have been thinking about going to an electric vehicle for a long time. This latest bout of prices for petrol going through the roof and uncertainty of supply, etc., I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. And thanks to your insights, you'd already been researching things, so I was able to start with my focus. And as it turns out, the world has gone crazy. It's hard to find vehicles, etc. I ended up choosing one that I've become happy with. But as I said to my daughters, it wasn't the perfect purchase. I did what I could with the time and resources I had to take 1 degree of psychological stress off the plate, knowing that we had a vehicle we could get around with thanks to our solar array, we could keep it fueled. And to your point, David, what that meant was, now you put it in those terms, I did what I could to maintain agency, some degree of control over the actions that were within my purview.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a little message of hope from the first part of this episode.
are 4 Ps. Number 2, principles. These are ideas worth building on. As Oscar Wilde reminded us, you can never be overdressed or overeducated.
In the principles segment of this episode, we're going to stick with Mike and the recession response because there's something fascinating that he touches on as he explains this nature of traversing a time of recession. And it's the business hierarchy of needs. And we're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, aren't we?
Well, I am, because I used to teach people about it, but I'm not sure everyone is.
Give us your short version. The short version, David.
Short version is you have physical needs first. Above that, you have safety needs. Above that, you have love and belonging needs. Above that, you have self-esteem needs. And at the top, you have self-actualization needs. And the rule is whatever the lowest level of needs you don't have sorted safe and well is where you should put your energy first.
All right. So what's an example?
If you and I are going, oh, the front door doesn't lock properly, that could be the most significant thing in the world. But if we haven't eaten for 2 days, it's more important we find food.
Well, let's apply that to here because his business hierarchy of needs, I think these stand whether or not it's a recession.
It does. I think this model is just a great business planning model all round.
We are neurologically wired to ourselves. We can satisfy our own needs because we just know instinctually. If you ever walk down a dark alley and feel that you're at jeopardy for being harmed, please turn around because your senses are triggering that you are at jeopardy. But we are not neurologically wired into our business. Yet many of us trust our instincts alone, and that's dangerous because we don't know if our business is at risk of harm. We just feel something. We need empirical data. So this is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs with one substantial difference, that this is something we're not neurologically wired into.
So at level 1, you've got sales, which is survival. So you have to be able to generate revenue and maintain cash flow. It's the foundation of a business. The next level up, the hierarchy of needs, is profit, which brings stability. If you can make sure the business retains money and builds financial resilience, you're achieving that need of profit. The third layer is structure or order. So creating some systems, some processes, so the business can operate efficiently. Then we move up to level 4, which is influence or having some impact. So building the brand, building and developing customer loyalty, maintaining and perhaps even increasing your market presence. And then you get to level 5, self-perpetuation, which is your legacy, which is ensuring the business can sustain itself beyond the owner. Would you like to reflect on that business hierarchy of needs? And perhaps we could give it this recession or times of uncertainty spin.
Absolutely. Mike suggests 2 very simple questions to ask, starting at the bottom of the hierarchy. Do we have some sales? If the answer is yes, we can move to the next question. Do we have adequate sales to have profit? If not, we've got to go back to the number of sales. Either way, we need more sales, probably. Do we have profit? If we've got some, do we have adequate profit to support growing the structures and order in the company? So at each point you ask, have you got this level? And if you don't, you immediately need to start working on it in earnest. But you also then ask, do you have enough of this level to facilitate working on the next level soon? So it's never a thing that you've got enough sales until you've got enough sales that profit is assured. You've never got enough profit until you can start building systems and structures that can last. So you're always working on the current level, but also being very aware of how it contributes to the next level. And when something goes wrong, like in Maslow's hierarchy, you always go back to the lowest level first.
So that's probably a good ready reckoner for all of us to have.
It's very brutal for those people who love what they do, but ask that first question, do we have sales? And if you're really lucky, you can say yes, but then you get to that second question, do we have sales adequate for profit? And that's where so many small businesses, the discomfort begins. There are sales. But is it enough for a nest egg that facilitates all the other stages of development that will improve the business and your life as the business owner?
I remember many years ago working with and meeting an accountant who specialised in profitability and cost accounting. And he made a comment that many businesses will be shocked of particular products they might sell which seem to have a good turnover, but are either not yielding enough profit or sometimes having a cost. It actually costs the business to make it, but they're not aware of it because they've got money coming from other sources.
Yeah.
This is probably that moment to say, you know what, this is worth some degree of investigation.
Yep, and recognising that the minute you get to the point of going, we want to build more systems, we want to have a stable structure so that we can grow. Well, as soon as you know what you want to build, you have to go and work out how much that's going to cost and work out how much you need to increase sales to make sure it doesn't put you in a worse situation to implement the improvements.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult system because you keep having to reflect back on, that would be lovely, but can we actually do it? How much more sales and profit do we need before we can do it comfortably rather than actually making our situation more precarious?
Yes, because you don't want to bring in some more money with a loan, for example, and just increase that dread that faces you every payday, every time you've got to do a run of pay. Oh, are we going to make pay this week?
Well, this is a great bit in the book where he talks about all the money that was available with different kinds of loans and grants during COVID. And he makes the point, if you need one and you can use it well, absolutely apply. But don't apply just because it's available, because that money will destabilise this hierarchy. And at some point you will have to pay that back. And at the point where you have to start paying it back, if you can't increase sales and profitability with the systems you've already got, you're not going to be able to afford to improve the systems if you're paying back the loan. So it's probably his starkest warning in the book, because I'm guessing early on in his making mistakes and learning better ways, I'm guessing he probably made that mistake the way he writes about it.
The other thing, just to round off our principal segment, is we've been talking about thus far of getting that cascading effect right within the hierarchy. You could argue is very much a management set of skills. I remember Stephen Covey talking about this in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about managers as being magnificent at finding the most efficient ways to climb the ladder, but the ladder needs to be against the right wall, which is when you switch across to leadership. And the other part that I thought was fascinating in this book, and I'll get you to expand on it a bit, is when he had a simple exercise he asked people to do that involved taking a blank piece of paper, writing the letter A on it somewhere, and then drawing 3 lines, David.
Yeah, basically the exercise is grab a piece of paper and a pencil, draw a circle in the middle, and write the letter A in the middle of the circle. Now, draw 3 arrows going out from the circle. Doesn't matter, you put them wherever you want to put them. Now, in the very top left corner of the piece of paper, do a circle with the letter B in it. And then he asks the question, A is where you are, B is where you should have thought about you want to go. Are any of your arrows pointing towards B? Making the point that in a recession we so often want to move from the discomfort we're in that we will move anywhere to get rid of the sense of discomfort, but we won't move deliberately to a point that is long-term a better place to be for the company. So don't take action until you know where B is.
And the beautiful thing is, with the way our human minds work, is even if our idea of where B isn't 100% perfect, it does give our subconscious the chance to do some parallel thinking, processing. And again, just to finish this one off, you correct me if you have a different position, but my position is sometimes it's better to have A goal that you're aiming for, even if it's not 100% right, because it brings in some sort of inner checking system, sense of logic, purpose, a reckoner for making decisions more easily because you can quickly judge, are they getting us to point B better or worse?
I think the whole point with that, and I agree totally, is B is where we want to get to from A, but later on we can pick point C and then point D and point E. As long as the point we pick is better than where we are in a couple of meaningful ways that we can explain, that's a good enough point for now. Like the idea that you can plan 10 years ahead perfectly, I'm not interested in that kind of planning. I don't believe it works. Yeah. But you do need to be able to go to sleep at night going, I did good thinking, I took difficult decisions, I took action, I'll do it again tomorrow. It might not be perfect, but I can go to sleep feeling that was a good day's work.
And you make a good point, because in my plan, I've got a 5-year plan. In 2027, I was planning to open up a marina in the Strait of Hormuz, and I don't think that's going to see the light of day.
But well, the IRGC might enjoy it, but they tend to blow stuff up, and where they go, the Americans blow stuff up. So I don't have great hope for your marina.
Our 4 Ps. Number 3, problems. These are the marketing challenges keeping you up at night. As Oscar said, we ask questions for the best reason possible. Simple curiosity, no hidden agenda, just genuine interest in what's actually happening.
Let's shift gears now in the problem segment. We look at different things that people encounter. I had an email from a client this week who was in the allied health field, and it was from some people who are claiming, and I believe one of them is in the medical field, and they've sent out this message: why your clinic isn't showing up when patients search for you. Now remember, this is written with that confident bravado that it's true, even though they've never seen you or looked at your site in life. But humans, our nature, David, is to assume that when someone writes something as emphatically as that it's based on a current audit of what we have. And it starts a quick heads up about something I think generally worth your time. You've probably noticed that how patients find health practitioners is changing fast. Google is no longer the only game in town. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google's AI overviews, these tools are actively recommending practitioners to people who are ready to book. And right now, 1 in 3 patients is already using AI search to find health services. Here's the uncomfortable part, and that bit is how I knew they'd written this using ChatGPT. Most clinics are invisible in those results. There's a free workshop on April 29th that addresses this directly. It's run by health business mentor and friend Paul Wright and Tor Davies, a specialist in AI search visibility for health businesses. That's an interesting speciality, David.
Yeah, I wonder if it involves proctology.
And it's called How to Get Your Clinic Recommended by AI Search, and in brackets, before your competitors do. One of Paul's VIP clients went from standard patient numbers to an extra 10 new patients per day directly from AI search changes. That's not a typo. The workshop covers how to make your clinic the obvious answer, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then it says how to make you the recommended practitioner in the area, what Paul calls becoming a purple cow in your market.
Oh, great. So now we've got Berto, whatever his surname was, the purple cow guy.
Seth Godin.
Oh, I thought it was, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was Bert O'Rourke, but we've had lots of purple cowing.
Well, there has been. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, she asked if she should do this. And I started writing back to her. I said, first of all, this is spam. It's written by ChatGPT and it's full of generalization. And I'm not sure if you remember, but when we were doing some research about a year ago, I used Perplexity AI, an AI search tool, and it cited your website in its results. She's already being found and recommended by these tools. I said I wouldn't trust these people as far as I could throw them. They're preying on insecurity. And for fun, I turned to Google's AI tool, Gemini, to review their email. And my reply to you, here's what it said. Now, I gave this message to her in full. I'll just give us the key points. But it's broken it down. It said, number one, deconstructing the fear factor. It uses classic FOMO, the fear of missing out. Claims like 1 in 3 patients are often based on broad global surveys of tech early adopters and rarely reflect the reality of specialised vestibular clinic in Adelaide. All right? So patients with chronic conditions like this, specialised one, are often looking for clinical authority, not just the first thing that a chatbot spits out. You agree?
Absolutely.
Number 2, AI visibility is just good SEO. The secret these workshops sell is usually some schema markup and some high authority content, things you are likely already doing, which is true.
Particularly if you're working with a good company like us.
Number 3, the 10 new patients a day red flag. For a specialised centre like yours, a claim of 10 new patients a day is a massive red flag. It actually says, in the niche medical field, that volume's often unrealistic and would actually overwhelm a high-quality small practice like hers. That's very insightful from Gemini.
It's the ultimate proof that they didn't do a real audit.
And then the purple cow irony. The mention of the purple cow is a reference to Seth Godin's book from 2003. Using a 20-year-old marketing trope to sell futuristic AI services is a bit ironic, says Google, and it shows they're recycling old sales scripts. David?
That's absolutely true, and I will surrender the point. I thought it was Berto O'Rourke, but I am happy to be Seth Godin.
So there you go. The reason I'm sharing this is it is a problem. We're all being plagued by these supposedly heartfelt messages coming to us that just create more fear. So it's bad enough that there are recessionary pressures. We've got these people nibbling away from our insides to try and make us spooked. I do like Google Gemini's last thought, though. Since they used her website's contact form, it might be worth checking if your capture needs an update to filter out these automated marketing bots.
That is very nice. And the only other thing I would add is keep in mind that if someone's searching for a service like you sell, you provide, using AI, the AI desperately wants its human to like it and keep using it. So the AI is going to look for things to recommend that you would like based on its interactions with you. So if you've got good content on your website that humans already like, AI is going to like it. It's really, really simple.
I think Seth Godin would say the same thing.
Moo. Where's the cattle prod?
Our 4 Ps. Number 4, perspicacity. Let's examine a campaign from the past and ask, would it work today? As Oscar Wilde believed, our one duty to history is to rewrite it. So let's see what we can learn.
Finally, in perspicacity, let's take an ad from a long time ago. And because you came up with this idea, David, we've got the oil shortage at the moment, petrol prices all over the shop. Some people will remember the 1970s when there was also an oil crisis and rationing was there, odds and evens. How would that work today, by the way, because there are so many personalised number plates?
I don't know. You'd probably just never let them fill up. That would be a great solution.
So vain people miss out. My apologies. You might have very good reasons, and I did have one for a little while. Okay. The ad we've chosen is from 1977. GM, General Motors over there in America, they brought out ads. Remember, the whole of America was panicking because you could hardly get petrol. Japanese automakers started entering the market because their smaller cars were more efficient. But GM can't let a good thing die. It was wedded to the big car. So it did this.
Announcing General Motors full-size cars for 1977, designed and engineered for a changing world. When GM began designing its new full-size cars, it had a goal: to use the world's foremost automotive technology and build from the ground up a line of totally new automobiles that would help conserve our natural resources. These cars were refined by computer to help make them strong and secure, yet without using excess steel. To help make them last, they received extensive new corrosion-resisting treatments. And to help reduce drag, they were tested and tuned in the wind tunnel. Yet, with all this concern for conservation, GM still retained the comfort and feeling of spaciousness people look for in full-size cars. The new full-size Chevrolets, Pontiacs, Oldsmobiles, Buicks, and Cadillacs, designed and engineered for a changing world.
David, what am I missing here? I feel like this is the Emperor's new clothes. GM's coming out saying, we've used computer-aided design to put less steel in it, use less fuel, but it's still nice and big and spacious.
I couldn't help think as we were listening to it of the current, Tank 300 and Tank 500 SUVs available in Australia. Going, the only thing that's changed is the hybrid powertrain. In all other respects, we're still making the ridiculously big car that people don't need but want. And the car world is still predominantly about what people want, not what they need. And that the ads are still just an attempt to go, we're going to give you what you want, but we're also going to give you a justification for not really thinking this through.
And that's why I think this is a timely ad to play and reflect on, because I would hazard a guess that it worked for some who thought the oil crisis, well, maybe not fake news back then because it was real, but they couldn't let go themselves, and so they would just sit with their engine idling for 7 hours to get a bit of petrol to keep the guzzler going. But for many people, I don't think it would have worked. I think they would have gone, I don't trust it, I'm going Japanese. The thing that has surprised me way before this event, I might have even mentioned it before here, for at least 2 years, as I see more and more of these stupidly huge, unnecessarily huge tanks that people are driving around, is, friends, when I was at primary school, we talked about oil being a finite resource and D-Day coming. Are you trying to hasten it, to hurry up the end of oil? It just absolutely, I don't get it, David. I don't get it unless you're a tradie and you're using it for tools, and there are probably better but less sexy options, like a good Ford Econovan or whatever. I don't know. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah.
But there are so many people. I was waiting to pick up the girls from the Paradise bus interchange last night, and some dad came to pick up someone, and he's got this tank that wouldn't even fit in a normal car park. And it's a pretty tight to regulation car park there. He couldn't do anything. He just came in, blocked everybody, waited, idling, chewing up 7,000 litres of petrol a second, and then had to back out and twist around to get out. It's just how we let this happen beggars belief, and it then means, I have already said that I think this ad is not going to work. Maybe I'm wrong, because these sort of ads are still pushing those huge beasts even in this time of war.
It's a strange thing. I almost wonder if the psychology of fear will get us to behave slightly differently. But at the end of the day, there's something about a psychology of status and comfort that if you can give someone status and comfort back with the size of the vehicle and the apparent luxury of it all or whatever, as long as the fear thing can be packed off to the side and the status and comfort comes back, it doesn't matter if the vehicle is still ridiculous. It's like ridiculous is built in to underlying human psychology for cars. I don't understand it. Here you are driving a sensible mid-sized electric vehicle. Here are my wife and I with a little Suzuki Swift that does 19.9 kilometres to the litre. And yet our two households are the exceptions in their car choices rather than the norm.
We're out of step. Or are we seeing the reality of the world? Because the other thing is, it makes it worse for everyone.
Yeah.
If you're using more than your fair share of the resources, I use that term lightly because we're even us using a fair share is still a lot more than many people in other parts of the world. It just seems uncivil, which is a weird thing to bring into a marketing conversation.
That actually raises a thing we should revisit one day in an episode. Yeah, this idea of civility as a driving force for an individual versus selfishness. Because that's really, actually that's the core of this, it's civility versus selfishness. And that's an uncomfortable thing to have to confront. And we might be sounding a bit egotistical saying we're on the civility side. I think in an awful lot of decisions in life, in hard times, it's easy to do the selfish thing, it's harder to do the civil thing. But what message do we want to put out there for other humans and for young people?
And then within the realms of a marketing podcast, it's about your customers.
Yeah,
your
who do you want as a customer and how do you want to be perceived?
So final thoughts on these ads. Would this ad work in 2026, David?
I think we're probably going to see another round of the same garbage, yes.
On that note, let's hop in the car. I've got to take you home.
At least we won't be using fuel.
Thanks for listening to Talking About Marketing. If you found this helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. And if you're so inclined, leave a rating in your podcast app. Both help more than you think. Steve and David welcome your thoughts, which you can send to podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. That's podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. Want to continue the conversation beyond the podcast? You can book 20 minutes with Steve at talkedaboutmarketing.com. No cost, no obligation. And we'll leave the last word to Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about.